我把这个麦换一下，把这个麦换一下，这个麦换一下。
I introduce the panel, I call the speaker comes to the podium, and I come down.
No, you can. I think there's your seat.
Because there is a speaker. So there is a speaker at the keynote, so he's going to use the podium.
Yeah, he will use the podium, and after his speech, the moderator and all the speakers, they will get on the stage. Before his speech, you all sit at the first row.
So even me?
Yeah.
So I don't introduce the speaker?
Just a second.
Because I thought you introduced me, then I introduce everything, and the speaker comes to the podium, talks.
Yeah.
Then he leaves, then I come, and then I introduce everybody, and then we start the discussion.
Because now there are several seats on the stage.
She will introduce you to the stage to introduce home.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back, and please switch your mobile phone and audio electronic devices to silent mode. 各位来宾，下午好，欢迎回到现场，请将手机及其他电子设备调至静音。Now let's begin our plenary one, the wisdom of the young generation, scientific and technological innovation and public health. 接下来我们将进行大会论坛1：青年智慧、科技创新与健康卫生。让我们欢迎本场论坛主持。Please join me, welcome the host of this session, Jonathan Lopez. Mr. Lopez is the TikTok Latin America strategy at ByteDance and also a Schwarzman Scholar of Tsinghua University. 让我们欢迎本场论坛主持人、字节跳动 TikTok 拉丁美洲战略经理、清华大学苏世民学者罗志成 Jonathan 先生上台。
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first plenary session of this forum's afternoon. And the name is going to be The Wisdom of the Young Generation, Scientific and Technological Innovation and Public Health. The arrival of information revolution has profoundly changed the fate of mankind. Scientific and technological innovations have enriched human life and expanded space for human survival. And healthcare issues have extended human life and ensured the quality of it. And the combination of technology and health will be the human development trend. So what kind of role, wisdom, and creativity of the young generation can play is our core concern. The ongoing pandemic revealed that technology has played an important role in responding to public health crises. And there is still a great potential for international cooperation in this area. So without further ado, I would like to invite our first keynote speaker, Marvin Hoon, who is a seasoned entrepreneur and vice chairman of Hoon's Group and executive director of the Hope Hing Group Holdings Limited. He's a member of the National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Hong.
Distinguished Wang Huiyao, young friends, good noon. Today, I'm very happy to be here to attend this annual forum of GYLD. Today, I'm very happy to talk with young people. I care a lot about the growth of young people when I was a young guy, on behalf of the Asia, I represent on the board of the Young Representation. Over the past 18 years, I was invited I have invited young people from dozen countries to come to China to discuss the strategic issues around the world. I think GYLD is a great international platform to focus on the global issues, the responsibility of the young people. Today, the topic of the session is the young wisdom, science and health. I want to share with you my views. COVID-19 until today, we have seen a lot issues. It's more than individuals issue, or it's more than an issue of a company. It's related the future of a country and the sustainability of a country. It is why we want to have an event of today, because we have a vivid example. Different health companies and of different companies guarantee the orderly life of the people and the health by the big data location, tracking of the individual life, and the injection of the vaccines. We can provide a invisible firewall for all the Chinese people. So I feel very much inspired. As a businessman, I care a lot about the issue of health and technology. Now we are undergoing the fourth round of the industrial revolution. Everything has to be related with technology. In food production and retail, I am familiar with. Technology is a key issue. How that we can play the core of our company. So young people is the vitality of a company. With young people and innovation, we can have different business model. Food production, food is more than taste. It's about efficiency and technology. By automation, how to reduce the production time. Through technology and innovation, we can develop new products. For business model, by mindless production, we can reduce the cost. And by big data, we can understand the appetites of the target customers. In China, in US, there are different jargons, but anyway, we want to tailor products for customers. And we can also have the data to support the opening of the stores. Young people are the major force of consumers. By the cell phone, we can get data to understand the young people. With new business model, we help to drive the economic growth. This is how we work with technology to change the behavior. In food industry and the combination with technology, there are different examples. For example, the artificial meat. Our VC invited a company doing the artificial meat. At the beginning, they use the vegetable, the plant. Later, they can implant the cells of the pork and the cow, make it more tasteful. 10 years ago, 20 years current products are ready. Different technology related to environmental issues with the carbon emission. With the artificial meat, we can lower the carbon emission. With the central kitchen, the food safety standard can have a higher standard compared with the scattered farm. They are good examples. Young people as the pillar of the future growth and the pioneer of the revolution. In the area of the consumption awareness, lifestyle, social life, we can do a lot, especially for science, technology, and healthcare. Young people should be the practitioner and the witness. Your idea and your courage and your great mind will be our hope for future. So I would like to listen to our young people for their ideas in 3 areas. First, in the pandemic globalized world, what humankind's role in the areas of the technology, how we overcome the pandemic with the vaccine. Most of countries are faced with social issues. For example, the lack of the health resources, the imbalanced distribution of medical resources, and the widening gap between the rich and the poor. The pandemic has become a tool, it's become a strategic tool for the global trade and for the talent migrations. All of them are challenged by the pandemic.
So the promotions of the innovations in the international science and healthcare is going to be the responsibilities and the questions as a young people should think. Second, so how will the technology combine and empower the healthcare industry and also the high-tech industries, and the big data is also going to empower the healthcare industry and also the technology industry, so it is closely connected. The extensions of life indicates that it is also going to be closely combined with the historic development and also the people's health. I've been investing a lot of biomedicine companies, and their CEOs are very optimistic about their future. And they told me that I'm going to live for 120 years. And I think that if we combine science and healthcare, it is going to be redefine the job pursuit of the young people. I am 51 years old. I feel that I am younger and more energetic than when I was 20 or 30. So why? Because I think the generation actually behind me is getting healthier. Yesterday, I have attended 2 boxing matches. So if I am going to be healthier and I eat a healthier food, and through the big impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and combine the technology, it is going to make our lives more exciting and colorful. So for these medical problems, and how will the technology empowers that, and how do we further extend our creations, and this is also going to bring some of the questions which the young scientists and entrepreneurs can discuss further and to promote the international cooperations. And thirdly, with the globalizations and research stage. So what kind of roles will the science tech company play in the future? And what kind of impact or awareness should it bring to the society? Which stage are we still in? How will the young leader tell better stories? And I believe only by using some of the challenging and intriguing topics and with a very strong perspective, we can actually grab this question, grab this problem, and solve this problem. This is exactly where the young leaders should think about. As a young entrepreneur in the new era of China who have witnessed the reform and opening up revolution in China. And in this grand tide of globalizations, I am very confident about technology-driven powers. I think that the problem that we encountered in this political world, the gap between rich and poor, the uneven development of the world economy is going to be addressed through technology. I think the starting point this is going to be very near from this point, and I believe it is going to make us a very enriching and meaningful life. As we all know, China is actually the biggest market with the widest opportunity. And we are actually the birthplace and the cradles for the emerging industry. And China's close protection and control measures in the COVID-19 pandemic has provided us very good technologies. Chinese companies welcome all the different companies and international entrepreneurs with their ideals and with their inspirations to come to China and to work in China and to be a part of the contributions to the shared destiny of humankind. I hope that all the young leaders could contribute your opinions and wisdoms and know-hows, and I believe the young power is going to facilitate the future development of China. And that word, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoon, very much. And I strongly agree with those remarks. Big data, artificial intelligence is something that is really enabling us to make better decisions. And as someone that works in a big data company, a company like ByteDance, data is super key for the decisions that we make across the different products. And I really want to resonate with that. I also want to remember the remarks of the ambassador of Egypt to China, Mohammed El Sattar, about how important is knowledge in the decision-making processes that we as young leaders are going to have in the future. So knowledge is power, data, artificial intelligence is just a tool that is going to enable us to make better decisions in the future, and that's going to improve the health for all humankind. So thank you so much. Now, I would like to introduce the different speakers for this panel. First, let me introduce Kaha Gojiashvili. Kaha is a startup enthusiast. He's passionate about innovation, high tech, building engaging communities, and China. He's the leading community at a major tech hub in Zhongguancun, Beijing, and he's the Beijing director of a startup grind. Thank you, Kaha. Welcome. Let me then introduce Kenneth Lee. Kenneth is the group president of the WiseDemo group of companies. After 40 years in business, the WiseDemo Group is a worldwide conglomerate of companies consisting of WiseDemo supply chain solution, apparel, and global investments that are a renowned international real estate developing, focusing on investment and development of high-quality real estate products, ranging from luxury outlets, shopping centers, and the Florencia Village brand, to high-end residential commercial developments, and sport-themed properties and experiential lifestyle shopping centers. Welcome, Kenneth. Third, I would like to introduce Dr. Brett Lindahl. Dr. Brett is a founder and CEO of the Alpha and Omega Group. He's a medical doctor holding a Master's of Medicine in Pediatrics and completed a vocational training at Grace Hospital in KZN and electives at the University of Melbourne Royal Hospital in Australia. Welcome, Brett. Fourth, I would like to invite Dr. Pen Lee. He obtained a PhD in China politics from the University of Hong Kong in 2012 in the Department of Government and Public Administration of the Chinese University of Hong Kong. His research and teaching interests focus on China's state-society relationship, disaster politics, and environmental politics. Currently, he serves as a research fellow for Guangzhou Academy of Social Sciences. Welcome, Dr. Pen. Next, I would like to introduce Ms. Karim Vazquez. She is a Fudan scholar at Fudan University. She's an associate professor and assistant dean at the O.P. Jindal Global University, India, and a senior consultant for strategic planning to the United Nations, leading the development of the 2022-2025 strategic framework and the UN Office for South-South Cooperation. Welcome, Karim. And last but not least, I would like to invite to the stage Jonas Wolf. Jonas is a Forbes 30 Under 30 social entrepreneur and a World Economic Forum global shaper. He's the founder of Leadership with the mission to grow entrepreneurial leaders through transformational coaching, training, and events. Welcome, Jonas. So thank you, everybody, for joining us this afternoon. First, I would like every one of you to do a quick introduction of yourselves and give us short remarks. How about we start in order with Kenneth, and then we continue this way. Kenneth.
Sure. In the Zhongkao, in some areas, as in the national testing, sports and overall sports ability is starting to be some points on the Zhongkao, on the national testing. So obviously the government is starting to see it's not just about rigor in studying, but also in overall health and overall ability. So we're opening NBA play zone development centers, Juventus academies, as well as overall sports parks throughout China to increase overall health, while at the same time using big data and a lot of sports technology to track kids and see their development ability. The other area that we're focusing on, so that's more preventative and overall youth, is actually rehabilitation. We think that the rehab market, from sports rehab to elder care rehab, is let's say behind other European countries and American countries. So we think that this type of 体育康复 or 养老康复 is a huge market, and this is also a very good way to increase overall health, both preventative as well as rehab. So we're looking to open kind of sports and elder rehab centers, which are more focused on, exercising, having an expert coming to help you, spot any of your smaller problems that will, before they become big problems. And then, of course, elder care nursing homes that I think the real estate market in China knows that elder care nursing homes is a huge market, and in the future, with big data and the development of Chinese society, it will only grow as we figure out the business model for that.
Thank you, Kenneth. Now, Karim, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Actually, I'm currently in academia, but before becoming a scholar, I spent many years in the government of Brazil and also working with international organizations, precisely thinking and practicing new ways of development cooperation, how countries can bring innovative frameworks and innovative tools and financing tools to promote cooperation. And actually, this is the angle that I would like to explore a little bit more when we discuss the role of technologies in the future and how to strengthen cooperation to promote more innovation, more technology, including for global health. We've seen with the pandemics that more and more the development challenges that we face are cross-border in nature. They're more and more complex, that we need cooperation to tackle. this. But cooperation itself also has many challenges, right? And how can we strengthen? I think there are two main points. One is creating or establishing cooperation frameworks that allow for the transfer of technologies, but also the adaptation, the appropriation of these technology transfers by the countries, and specifically developing countries, so that they have more autonomy in taking their development pathway forwards in a more sustainable way. And we've seen examples of these innovative frameworks with my own country, Brazil, and China. The biotech from China Pharma Company and Institute Butantan in São Paulo, they entered into a partnership agreement that included, amongst the different provisions, the transfer of technology for the production of Coronavac in Brazil. And this has had a huge impact, because it's through this cooperation that Brazil was able to increase, expand its capacity to produce vaccines, and even accelerate the immunization campaign across the country. So this is a very clear example of, yes, I would expect that colleagues from the private sector are raising their eyebrows to technology transfer. Yes, it's not an easy task. There are many challenges and interests behind, but there are also many opportunities for win-win mutual benefits. And in terms of appropriation, I think it's also important for countries to, these cooperation initiatives, to invest in the development of capacities and invest in research and development. Because in the example of Brazil and China, we happen to have these institutions in place almost ready to take forward the production of the vaccine. But this is not the case in many developing countries who lack much of this capacity of these institutions. So investments in this sense are also important, along with the cooperation frameworks that allow for transfer of technologies. And we have an interesting, very interesting example from the World Health Organization. Just last month, I think, started an initiative to create vaccine production hubs in developing countries, precisely to create these capacities in least developed countries, low-income, middle-income countries across the world, to produce vaccines. By offering these hubs, are expected to offer training on how to produce and also how to ensure the quality of the vaccines throughout the production process. So these are two points that I would like to emphasize in this initial remark. I think there is much more that we can explore, including on financing, but I'll finish for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Karim. And at this point, I want to highlight the importance of investment going into the health tech, because that really opens up more space for more competition, and at the same time, more international talent, focusing energies on developing new technologies, new innovations that is going to benefit more people. At the same time, what is important now is that while competition creates more technological improvements, as we saw earlier this morning, it is key to transfer technology and to foster more cooperation so we don't leave anybody behind, especially in these times of COVID-19, where not only those that are able to develop a vaccine can benefit and go back to the new normal, but we can actually share it to everybody else around the world. So those are very key points. Thank you so much. Now, Dr. Peng, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jonathan. Nice to meet you again here. And I'm a political scientist, so I think my sharing is somehow relevant to this very topic. I'm trying to share my actually ongoing research, very much related to or focusing on the empowering effect of the innovative ICT technologies, particularly on the Chinese society forces, because the relatively successful story of Chinese combat against the COVID-19 epidemic in some of the mega cities, including my home city, Guangzhou. Of course, one side is China has very capable, very powerful government system with very strong organizational and economic, financial capacity. But the other side of the story is we see the growth or continued development of the societal forces, including business and citizens, volunteers, volunteer organizations, and lots of non-governmental organizations putting their efforts into the fight, the ongoing fight against this global transporter epidemic, public health crisis. And in my research, I'm trying to focus on how this kind of innovative technologies help, especially, I'm trying to focus on two specific categories of affected, people or, state kind of actors in this, ongoing crisis. One broad sector includes those vulnerable populations, especially in affected areas, in affected cities, like, for example, like the Wuhan and Guangzhou. Okay, the first wave and the second wave, both are epicenters. The other major, kind of societal actors I'm trying to focus on and see their relationship, their relevance with the empowering effect of, new ICTs amid, public health crisis management is more like the voluntary forces in China. So for the most vulnerable populations, like we see like what happened in Wuhan and Guangzhou, we see new opportunities and provided by developing ICTs, for example, online long distance, face-to-face, this kind of online diagnosis, and also very important online medical services for example, I will give you a very specific example. A large group of vulnerable population with chronic disease. China has one of the largest number of kidney disease patients. These patients had great difficulties access to dialysis, this kind of treatments during this kind of major outbreak. But online new solutions, ICT, social media, this online diagnosis solutions provided new opportunities for these patients, provided new kind of solutions for these challenges. And I think this kind of direction has great kind of very good future for future development with more input from innovative input from both big data companies, but of course with partnership with both governments and charity, this kind of sector. And also when it moves to elderly, women pregnant, these are also very important categories of vulnerable populations amid the COVID-19, and especially under this kind of very strict quarantine policies and homestay isolation. So new ICTs, social media provided this kind of new solutions, possible new solutions for this kind of particular kind of vulnerable population. And from Wuhan to Guangzhou, we saw some actually new lessons, positive new lessons learned, okay, when it comes to this kind of ICT-based enabling public health solutions for vulnerable population, especially elderly, women, even including low-wage migrant workers. There are a large number of low-income migrant, workers. They might be more severely affected by this kind of public health crisis when they're trapped or lost their job for short term in big cities like Wuhan and Guangzhou. Maybe it also shows us very good lessons can be learned, can be shared across the world in mega cities, in both developing countries and more industrialized countries when it comes to how ICT can help vulnerable population amid a major public health crisis. The other side of the story, or the other side of the focus of my own research, is trying to see how ICT's new development empower Chinese citizens to come up with this kind of mutual help, voluntary this kind of services, and supplementing efforts of the government, of the state. So we see a lot of, actually big data companies coming up with new kind of, crown-based this kind of ICT tools, enabling innovative crisis crowdsourcing efforts, with the input of large number of anonymous volunteers trying to more directly engaging those in need, including many of those vulnerable population I mentioned just now in the epicenter in the most affected, isolated communities during the hardest moments amid this public crisis, both in Wuhan and Guangzhou and many other cities. So I'm also trying, this is a developing kind of research. I'm collecting more this kind of empirical evidence, collecting more new cases, and I'm looking forward to more kind of this information. I know there are quite a lot of entrepreneurs and scholars from business in both academic sectors sitting, joining us these 2 days. So I would like to, share more this kind of information and learning more from you. And that's so much I want to share so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Penn. I just want to highlight the diversity of the panel. We have someone from investing, we have somebody for international cooperation, and then we have a researcher. So technology itself, yes, it can improve many areas, but you also need academia, you need research, you need to have data so you can channel these efforts in the best possible way. And I just also want to elaborate on the ICT's research that you're doing on the importance of social media and different platforms for transmitting the right information to the audience. Who remembers all the misinformation that we had at the very beginning of the COVID-19 outbreak? There was so many information, you didn't really know what to believe. So the importance of getting platforms to partner with the, let's say, NGOs and transmit the real information to the audience is definitely key in these moments of crisis. So thank you, Dr. Penn. Now, I would like to invite Jonas to give us a few remarks.
Hey everybody, my name is Jonas Wolf, or Jonas Wolf. I'm very excited to be here. Jonathan, thank you for moderating as well. My mission is to unleash entrepreneurial leaders, and based on the work I've done here in China the last 3-4 years, I had the chance to work with lots of entrepreneurs and young people who want to develop technology to make a positive change in the cities and the communities they're in, but also broadly around the world. So I hope we have the chance to discuss today a little bit more in depth, also the role of youth and youth leaders, how all of us can step up and contribute to that change. Here in China, through the whole COVID crisis, we have seen the great importance of speed and also the braveness to step up and make very strong, sometimes tough decisions, and the effect that China is pretty much the only country in the world that had a strong grip on COVID. And I think we talked about international collaboration, transfer of technology and so on. I think there's a great deal that the world can learn from China in terms of the ability to act and create. Like it took China a couple of weeks for the WeChat health code to be ready. Myself, I come from a country that prides itself on technology and innovation. I'm from Germany originally, and unfortunately I have to say it cost us about 70 million euros and 5-6 months to develop a COVID app that was not even that much used by the population. So I think, yeah, we've seen a great example of leadership here, and based on the work I do, in particular hackathons, ideathons, social innovation competitions, and also coaching, mentoring for entrepreneurs and young leaders, I hope that many leaders here in the room step up and help to solve COVID and other crises around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonas. And this is very true. Like, leadership can come from absolutely anybody, especially in moments of crisis. And this is just the importance, once again, for this panel, for GYLD, for the mission that we are all together here to foster the leadership of the youth in the different, let's say, key areas for development today and in the future. Thanks, Jonas. So now I would like to invite Kaha to share a few remarks. Kaha.
Thank you, Jonathan. Hello, dear guests. It's a really great pleasure to reunite today with so many old friends from GYLD and also meet some new friends. And it's a very interesting topic like we are discussing today. I have a background in also similarly to Jonas with connected with entrepreneurship and startups, being a part of one of the major Zhongguancun's tech hubs, helping startups and founders to fulfill their dreams and tackle problems of the world, including our pandemic problem, and also being part of the world's largest startup community. So I'm very close to the founders and startups. And one of the important parts of the startup mindset is that they try to see in the challenges, in the crisis, the opportunity. So entrepreneurship mindset is like you see a problem, there's an opportunity. And I wanted to also in my remark remind you, everyone here, that today we also sit here and enjoy the results and benefits of some crisis in the past. We don't have to go really far away in the past. For example, just 70 years ago, the invention of such a scary thing as a nuclear bomb, which made the whole world scared to be and brought to the brink of annihilation. But this scary invention, this crisis, has brought us as close as possible to the world peace. It made impossible huge large-scale wars as a Second or First World War, and now we enjoy relative peace. Another example is Cold War. It was a very also tough time. A lot of people suffered during this period. But during these tough times, during this crisis, the governments of US and Soviet Union, they were pushing science in order to compete with each other, and this brought us to the space, this brought us to the moon, and it also accelerated technology development in an incredible way. And today, all of you have the results of this. In your hands, you have your phones. The technology of transistors and microchips were developed thanks to the space race, the result of the crisis of the Cold War. And I prefer to see the COVID in the same way. As it's a great saying, great Chinese proverb that everyone knows, 塞翁失马, right? So I prefer to see it this way, that COVID was like a wake-up call. And it accelerated technology adoption everywhere. And nowhere it was as strong as in healthcare. And it brought health tech to the unknown horizons. This pandemic has revealed all the inefficiencies and vulnerabilities of different regions, of countries, of all the economies that were hiding there. Even before already, it's been kind of a development trend to invest in health tech and med tech and such things. But they're pretty slow in adoption. People are unwilling to change the ways that they're used to for centuries. I mean, this is completely changing the way that we're used to think about health. And thanks to COVID, both sides of developers and side of consumers were forced to change and accept digitalization, accept e-medicine, telemedicine, accept interaction with robots, want they or not. And this is just a trend that's going to be more and more accelerated. And I'm really excited to talk about this topic today. And I think, yeah, it's a very great thing.
Thank you, Kaha. I think this is something that reminds me of a quote that I heard a while ago. That is, that crisis creates chaos that opens up opportunities. And those opportunities redefine the path that we are taking. So in these moments of crisis and the moments that we have seen in the past, because this is cyclical, this is going to happen once and again and again. In these moments is that we refine what is the path that we want to take for the future. And this is the importance of the startups, the youth, and the different, let's say, stakeholders that are involved in making, our future a better place. So with that, I would like to give the floor to Brett, and you can give us a few remarks. Thank you.
各位领导、嘉宾，大家下午
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm from South Africa. 今天非常高。
I'd like to share some of my thoughts on scientific and technological advancement, especially in the wake of the COVID-19 public health crisis. I'm a medical doctor by profession, and I specialized in pediatrics. And I'd found that, especially in healthcare, and especially in investment and strategic healthcare innovation platforms, especially with research, from the laboratory going to a POC concept and actually being able to get a viable or minimum viable product, it takes a very long time. The actual systems like Kaha was talking about are very archaic and they're too slow. Jonas spoke about the speed of the execution of a simple app for tracking. When in China we just use 健康宝 or 健康码 and we're good to go. But unfortunately, their infrastructure for the whole ICT sector for many parts of the world still needs a lot of support and attention from major players so that we can all help increase together. As an African, I'm really encouraged to see the support of what we are doing at the moment. A simple example is myself and some of our team worked together to develop a COVID-19 diagnostic device, which is called a rapid antigen test, which tests for the presence of COVID-19 within 10 minutes and is about 10% the price of a PCR test. And it also doesn't need any type of machine. So we definitely need more international collaboration where countries who lack the resources of maybe the startup capital or the actual technology know-how or the actual scientific research ability to come together to work with established institutions to actually provide that. One simple example was a collaboration with the South African Medical Research Council on their Sisonke vaccine trial, where these antibody test kits were used as a reference to look at the different efficacy on different variants of COVID-19 using different vaccines. And actually, South Africa had to stop the purchase of the AstraZeneca vaccine because it actually had no efficacy on the South African variant at the time. So we can see that we really need to adapt to these situations by using a more adaptable method that is it's helpful for the community, it's also helpful for the technology owner, and it's also helpful for the investors, whether they be pathology groups or hospital groups or even insurance companies who are using this as an opportunity to help to treat their client and to help their client. So I think especially for technology and especially for entrepreneurs and the work that Jonas and Kaha is doing, I think that's amazing because I believe startups are definitely the future of small or medium enterprise business models because they use a lean methodology where they cut out all of the non-necessary costs that are needed to actually get the thing going. And the founders definitely are trying to solve a problem that is a niche in a certain market. So I think the development of that, and I myself being a product to some of the work that these amazing guests are doing, it really shows that young entrepreneurs, young scientists can come together and be able to be in such an environment where they can meet their co-founder or they can meet the investor or they can find a way to meet with policymakers so that they can actually land projects. Because it's good to talk about a lot of things, but unfortunately the success rate, especially for health tech startups that maybe don't receive the adequate policy or funding, again, it goes back to the same policy of it's an archaic process. You have to go through a registration like an FDA or a CE or a SAPRA or an African Union, CDC Africa or whatever it is, and it takes a long, long time to get products that are very needed for the environment and for the actual landscape at that time. So I hope in today's discussion we can come to understand how we can actually contribute to the development of actually being able to partner with different technological institutions so that we can come together to solve these crises. Because as we said, we have the opportunity to come here. We're not wearing our mask. We're speaking on a stage. And some areas of the world, unfortunately, they don't have that opportunity. So we need to also play our part and try to be part of that next move to try and help the future of these youth, to develop them, give them the opportunity so that they can actually be successful in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. This is great remarks, and I just want to elaborate a little bit from here. There have been said a lot about startups, a lot about tech startups in the public sector for health. And I would like to extend a question more to the policy and investment side. If the participants of the panel would like to expand a little bit more on how are those decision-making processes for investing in different technological startups, and also on the policy side, how can we better support those so we can have a bigger impact around the world? So how about, Kenneth, you tell us a little bit more about how from the investment side we can ensure that these startups are getting the support they need, and then Karim, maybe you can elaborate a little bit more about how the policy, we can accompany more startups to make a bigger impact.
Sure. Yeah, we've done a little bit of research into the major pharmaceutical and chemical and biopharmaceutical markets in both overseas and in China. And obviously, China is still lacking. If you take the top 20 pharmaceutical companies in China, the actual overall value of those companies is probably about 1/7 of the equivalent in the United States. So obviously the top ones, I mean, there's still TCM companies that are in that top 10 companies. The other thing is the amount of Yanfa, the R&D that these companies are spending are not reaching the levels in overseas. So I think that policy-wise and investment-wise, China is seeing that there's a big need to catch up to the overseas investments, whether it's Europe or the United States, in terms of developing these companies. I think that the Chinese government is very good at supporting industries, and then this is an industry where they're really targeting to be more self-reliant. As we know, the government hopes to be more self-reliant in the future. Another interesting thing that we as a real estate investor are also looking at is actually we invest in a lot of life sciences real estate in the United States, and the growth of that market is very interesting because we believe that it's a lot is called CRO, I guess, which is called contract or outsourced research organizations, which a lot of the big pharma, because like you said, they're too slow, so a lot of the research and also the testing is outsourced in a way to become leaner. And I think that is an area in China where life science investment is not yet reaching where we are in the United States, where we can open labs in the Boston area, and there's a lot of these startups that just do the research part, they outsource the research part and the testing part, and in that way they can work with Johnson & Johnson and the large pharma. I think in that area, China is also could also do something similar.
Thank you, Kenneth. Anything else that you would like to share on the policy side? Perhaps Karim or Peng?
I think, especially in the context of China, I think when it comes to I think the government, I would like to see, more partnership between this, with the back of the government, with the facilitation of government, to facilitate more this kind of, innovations from enterprises, from scientific researchers, with more collaboration with this kind of the third sector actors, because I'm more focusing on the social and political aspects of this kind of technological innovations. So when it comes to this part of the story, how effective and how far can this kind of new both investment and technological technique kind of innovations can really benefit those who are really relatively disadvantaged populations, especially amid this ongoing public health crisis is going to be long term, and also added up with the ongoing deteriorating climate change. We see more extreme weathers and crises emerging. So maybe we see, this is not only about the CSR issue. It's very practical and very helpful in addressing very practical on earth kind of challenges when it comes to public health and major public crisis. So I would like to see, especially against the context of China, the political, economic, this kind of context in China, I would like to see more government-backed positive partnership between the three sectors, have a very positive kind of contribution with more, positive this kind of social kind of outcomes.
Great, thank you. That will lead me to the second question, and I would like to ask it particularly to Karim. It's about how we can strengthen the international cooperation on technology innovation and public health, especially since I know you do particularly most of your research on the south of the BRICS country, you being from Brazil. So I would like to hear a little bit more about what you do and your insights on this particular question.
Yes, I think there is an important dimension of the discussion. We've been talking extensively about the recovery, right? How to respond to the emergency, and it's natural. It's what the world needs now. We've been talking throughout this morning about the different impacts that the pandemic has caused to many of our countries. Just to cite a few, last year, 70 million people across the world were pushed back to poverty. China succeeded in eradicating poverty last year, but many places of the world were actually reverting many of these achievements that they have had, not only poverty reduction, but across all the SDGs. And this is really critical if we think that we are left with less than 10 years actually to achieve the 2030 development agenda, sustainable development agenda. And we are amid such great distress. How we are going to respond to this is the question of the moment. But another way to look at it is also, and there has been discussion, is how we want to rebuild this road after the pandemic, and what is the role that cooperation can play in financing specifically. Our colleagues have been talking about investments and policies, but we also have to think of innovative ways to channel finance to leverage innovation, to leverage technology. And this is also important if we look at the many transformations that our world has been going through. Just to name a few of the transition to a digital economy, the transition hopefully to a low carbon economy, and China being one of the countries taking a big step towards making bold commitments to decarbonize the economy by 2060. Are we ready for these transformations? How are they going to impact countries? And how financing can be channeled not only to mitigate any risks that these transformations might cause in the case of digital technologies, inequalities or exclusion from the digital world, but also to help countries adapt or benefit from the opportunities that are going to emerge. And we've had several interesting initiatives in the financing realm with the issuance of the SDG bond in the Chinese market recently. That was actually one of the initiatives carried out by the New Development Bank. We also see more and more even private financial institutions discussing mechanisms, financial and non-financial mechanisms to catalyze, to attract finance towards socially and environmentally sustainable projects. And just to name a few examples, like you can provide a longer-term maturity rates for the loans or a lower interest rates for projects that are more in line with this understanding of sustainability. So there are many different ways that we can think how we want to rebuild the world and the role that cooperation and finance have to play in this process.
Thank you very much, Karim. And then to wrap up this panel, I would like to invite every of our speakers to give their, like a short line, 1 or 2 lines, something very brief, on what is the future development and outlook of Healthtech. How will we start with Dr. Brett?
I think, once again, there needs to be a collaboration between the scientists, the research councils, the clinical trials, the hospitals, and the investors. We need to try and fast-track the process of going from a laboratory experiment to a POC to an MVP as soon as possible. And using these rapid test kits, point-of-care test kits as an example, I think we can use that to drastically change how we we test for infectious diseases, especially for early stage within those asymptomatic cases, especially between 1 to 3 days of exposure. They're really, really important so we can get there first and we're able to contain it before it's able to spread. Yes.
Thank you. Kaha?
Yeah, very well said, Dr. Brett. I completely agree with that. And I think also this crisis brought us all together in terms of that this is not just one country's problem. If it happens, it's everyone's problem. So everyone should be working it together and be willing to share the resources and be willing to cut the bureaucracy and put the higher speed on solution of these problems, because this is very vital. And also another thing that, want they or not, this is going to be only accelerating the development of health tech. And I'm sure we're going to be seeing very interesting things happening in the following years. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonas?
In my opinion, we should go back to basics. As it was said this morning, in my opinion, that is to communicate, collaborate, and also get back into the education system, and from a young age help young people develop the mindset to collaborate and have this awareness of current crisis and future crisis. We just seen in Zhengzhou and as well as in Germany and all around the world, like if we are just thinking forest fires, it's another big disaster. We see more and more, and so we know clearly that those crises just won't go away. And so that's why I just so strongly believe we must start educating the future to be aware and then work together. As we've seen for thousands of years, the more information flows, the more and the faster solutions can be found. Yes, of course, there's also risks of globalization, like yes, the Black Death was also spread through the Silk Road, right? But then there were so many more gains that were to be had, and ideas that were exchanged, and then they grow throughout the countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonas. Dr. Pan?
Yeah, thanks. I think, first of all, I think one thing is very important is sharing. So I think this platform has provided a very good kind of platform for knowledge sharing, especially in the younger generations, like what we already seen, like everybody shares on this stage. We already seen quite a lot of innovations, done by young enterprises, entrepreneurs, young, social entrepreneurs, and also a young generation of this kind of volunteers and social activists. So I think sharing is very important for our collective dealing with the public health crisis. The other very important point, I think, is we need to look at or address with that, ICT, all this innovation, exciting kind of innovations available. We need to address actually the enlarging the other, not so satisfactory side of the story is the actually enlarging digital gap, right? When it comes to the elderly, the vulnerable population who actually need to get the actual benefit from all this kind of those business and technical advances. We need to address this kind of gaps in the future.
Thank you so much. Karim?
I'll be very brief. Essentially, create the cooperation and the financing frameworks to allow for technology transfer, to allow for institutional capacity building, to respond now, but also build resilience for the future.
Thank you. And finally, Kenneth.
Yeah, I think that the pandemic has been very encouraging for China, and I think people in China should be very proud of what was accomplished in China over the pandemic. I also think it proves that China can be, especially for the future of big data and AI in healthcare, China can be a leader, not just technology, but also commercially, but also socially, for the overall social good of the society. I think AI and big data, sometimes it's not focused on in the West in terms of what is socially good or morally good even for big data, and China can share and be a leader in this area, and I think that's very positive.
Thank you, Kenneth. Thank you very much. I just want to wrap up by saying that some of these crises are to some extent inevitable, and they are just external factors that are beyond our control. But what we can really control is the way we come together from different industries to collaborate and cause a very positive impact and respond to this crisis in the best possible way and prepare for the future, like cultivating the young generations and creating that mindset, as Eugenia said, so we can continue to tackle these problems in the future, because they're not going to stop here, and we need to prepare better for that. So thank you, everybody, for participating today, and join me by thanking our panelists, and thank you so much.
Thanks to our hosts and speakers for their excellent speech. 感谢主持人和各位发言嘉宾的精彩演讲。Of WiseDemo campaign. 下面我们将开始论坛的下一环节——国际青年智慧行动工作坊。Please welcome the host of the session, Mr. John Zhao, the GYLD Program Manager. 有请本场主持人、国际青年领袖论坛项目经理赵占杰先生上台。
Okay, thank you all. Thank you, especially thank you to our Plenary One host, moderator Jonathan. Thank you for your accurate control of time. And next, we will have actually a very interesting session. It's called the WiseDemo campaign session. And let me briefly introduce this campaign. What is this? It's a very important part of GYLD program. The WiseDemo campaign was a call for proposals from experts around the world for innovative solutions to today's global challenges along the areas of focus for the solutions like global community of shared future, inclusive development, technology and innovation, ecological civilization, and environmental protection, culture and education. And after 4 months proportion collection, and we have selected top 5 winners to attend to demonstrate at the GYLD 2021 Annual Forum. And you can see outside, we display their proposals, the poster, to show their ideas. And next, we will invite, right now the 4 of them to on site to do an elevator pitch. Each one will have 90 seconds to introduce their proposal, and other 2 authors do not based in Beijing, and actually one is overseas. They record the video to introduce their proposals, and I hope their innovative idea will let you to have a harvest. And we also very honored to invite 4 comment experts to the GYLD forum, and then they will comment for the proposals of each author. And please let me to introduce them. The first one is David Blair. He is a former senior business columnist of China Daily, and he is a very famous economist and commentator of CGTN. Welcome, David Blair. And second is He Mei. She is the founder of Lian Group, and she is doing a very good job to help the international of the Chinese and connect China and the world. Please welcome Miss He Mei. The third is Wang Yan. she is the former dean of School of International Education of China Foreign Affairs University. It's a very famous university to cultivate the diplomats in the future. Okay, welcome, Ms. Wang Yan. Welcome. And the last but not least is Andy Mark. He is a commentator of CGTN and very special at technology and geopolitics and very senior experts of these areas. So do not let me waste too much time. And firstly, I want to invite our first proposer, Jose Renato. He is the Executive Director of China University Summer School Association. He has come from Wuhan. Welcome. It's your stage.
So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Renato Penelope. I'm from Brazil. I bring it to you NewsCon Network project with the goal to build a constructive China-West dialogue. As we can see, there's 5 projects today here that are supposed to introduce themselves, so I congratulate them all. Our influence here is Edgar Snowden and Robert Kuhn, 2 foreigners that respectively in their time, they introduced China to the world with a Chinese perspective. Our background here will be Xi Jinping speaks and policies like telling Chinese stories, spreading Chinese voices, presenting the truths of China, and building China-Latin American country community. So as a Latin American, what I can tell you is Brazil is the biggest economy in Latin America. China is the biggest economical partner of Brazil. And for all the problems we have, we're still members of the BRICS. So from this point of view, our project is already joined 30 communities from academic to journalists, and we basically organize news communication network with online platform and data collection, also information production centered, telling Chinese contemporary history with a non-Western perspective. Of course, multidisciplinary team is needed. So. Right? We need to see from the point of view of China. The challenge is being mostly the information and the news is generated by the big conglomerates. And also lately there is a lack of professionals from media in China. So we have to overcome that. To overcome that, we need institutional assistance, financial aid, and structure support for the institution itself. I think to conclude, I'll bring Neruda, a para-diplomat and poet from Chile, Latin American, of course. He brings the idea that eternal friendship makes you believe that there is always a beauty in the world, and it makes you to believe that there is always a door to be open. And that's the door we want to open with this collective cooperation. Thank you very much for the time here, for the opportunity, and good luck for us all. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Renato. And our commentator, I think we invite Ms. Linda He May to give our comments. And I think all the comments is you can have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for your sharing. I have done a lot of cultural exchange projects. I have done some cross-cultural communication research. I'm very moved to hear Brazil young people to share the dream. I value your choosing of the topic. We all care about how to tell a good Chinese story. in this time of anti-globalization, how can we use the advanced internet technology to break the barrier between us and to promote mutual trust? This is very significant. We can use the blockchain concept and technology to guarantee the authenticity of the information. Then for China, there will be channel to convey the real information. And for the Brazilian people, they can be able to understand a real China. So this demand is two-way. I said, you propose that now we have less and less foreign journalists in China. We need to tell good stories, and we need to have a storyteller. We need to have good talents and on the other hand, we need to open our door to the fair and objective media friends from other countries to tell good story of China. Thank you, Madam He.
Have a comment?
Maybe I can add something to that. So someone that works in media in front of the camera, but also behind the camera, I would commend you that this is, I think, a great initiative. One thing I would add, or maybe 2 quick points, is in terms of your coverage of content, I think, of course, contemporary China is very important, but you might also want to consider classical Chinese thought. Because when we look at the world today, especially with the US and China in this tech Cold War, this decoupling, that part of it is due to, I think, what traditional Chinese philosophers would consider an incorrect view of the world, meaning that we see nation states as completely separate. Whereas if we look at it from a traditional Chinese perspective, looking at this idea, for example, of 一多不分, right, that the one and the many are inseparable, and that countries around the world are actually part of one ecosystem, so that the US might be the stomach, China might be the heart, but to infuse your stories with these kinds of philosophical ideas might be helpful. So that's my first suggestion. My second suggestion is more from a technical, practical one. I don't know if you've considered looking at, say, what YouTube has done. So in the early days of YouTube, to encourage content creators, they developed studios where you could go use their equipment, because as you probably know, some cameras, lenses, etc., can be quite expensive. So this is sort of a common shared good. But just as importantly, it was a place to go learn how to use the equipment, learn how to edit, or learn how to add sound effects, etc. That perhaps this is something that institutions in Brazil or in China might be willing to support. But thank you, and I commend you for your idea.
Okay, thank you, Andy, and thank you, Mr. Renato, and thank you for your sharing, and thank you for the comments. And the next one is I would like to introduce Joseph Cash, the policy analyst of China-Britain Business Council. Please.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here speaking with you today. I hope that you're enjoying the conference and that you've had a good morning so far. So my proposal is, could we make trade deals more effective, better for business, if we were to adjust the language of trade negotiation and the focus of trade negotiation? And this idea, I've had it for a couple of years now. It first came to me when I was working on the UK-Japan trade negotiation a couple of years ago. I noticed that in the talks at the political level between the UK and Japan, particularly post-Brexit, there was a strong desire for the two countries to get on to do this trade deal so that the UK and Japan could move towards the CPTPP. However, when I was participating in the trade talks, it seemed that there was a far frostier relationship, that the talks would get bogged down in language such as offensive interests and a focus on reciprocity. And I wondered, is this because perhaps these words, they have, even though they are academic expressions pertaining to trade and no emotional subtext to them, when translated to other languages, particularly Asian languages, I'm thinking Chinese, Japanese, they have a different meaning to what, say, a British interlocutor is putting forward. And that it is possible to discuss trade in a way that is far more cooperative than to say, I am putting forward my offensive interests. To offend It is something that doesn't sit well with me, and I think, you know, it's not what you're trying to do in a trade negotiation. Finally, on this focus on reciprocity, you know, there is a lot of evidence now, I've got 9 seconds, to show that trade deals that focus on reciprocity between developed and developing economies actually make economies poorer, rather than if you focus on investing in areas where each country has a specific need. I think by reworking our language, by reworking our focus, we might be able to affect better change in trade negotiation and deliver better deals that actually make 2 countries, 3 countries in the multilateral system more prosperous. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. And I would like to invite David Blair to give comments. Thank you.
I congratulate you on making what I think is a very interesting point, that maybe the details of wording confuses people in these international negotiations. One point I'd like to make is you used a little sub-phrase called, where you said we should make trade deals better for business. I think what is going on internationally is that publics in many countries are pushing to have trade deals that are not only better for business, better for companies, but also better for the entire society. And I think maybe if you can incorporate going forward social effects on economic development, you have to reach trade deals that are mutually beneficial to as many people as possible throughout society. I know you know this, but I'm just saying the wording also in English makes a big difference. So that's a recommendation. I congratulate you on approaching what I think is one of the crucial issues going forward, is what kinds of trade deals are we going to be able to work out? And are they going to be different than the ones we've worked out in the past?
Thank you.
Okay, we still got 1.5 minutes. If any other experts? No? Okay, thank you, Joseph Cash, and maybe we can communicate later about this proposal. And next, I would like to invite Zhuo Rui Jacob. He is the senior editor of the Springer Nature, and he will talk about the ecological civilization. Yeah, please.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time. I'd like to talk about my belief that Chinese foreign policy with Western countries should revolve around ecological civilization and climate change. So in this October, China is hosting in Kunming the COP15 conference on biodiversity. It's the most important conference in the last 10 years about biodiversity. And it's coming at a good time because in the 2012, the start of the 13th five-year plan, a national parks program was formally involved in the five-year plan. And by now, China's launched 11 Guojia Gongyuan, including the Sanzhuanyuan in Qinghai, which is over 50% of the province. Many countries around the world have pledged a 30 by 30, meaning 30% of the land preserved by 2030. In this respect, China has two strong advantages. One is that 57% of the territory of China is not very much inhabited, whether it's Xinjiang, Gansu, Qinghai, or Dongbei. And the other is China's unique governmental mode allows it to make decisive action much more efficiently and rapidly than some other countries can do. So insofar as climate change seems like it will be the biggest challenge for everyone, in the words of CCG advising Consul Kishore Mabuhani, looks like a Cold War is two monkeys fighting in a burning forest. Since climate change is the most important issue of the 21st century, China's foreign policy should lead with its strong achievements in this front, including biodiversity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I would like to invite Andy. Maybe you can have some comment.
Great. Well, thank you for your proposal. I think the points you raised are absolutely correct, and that was a very vivid quote that you shared about two monkeys fighting in a burning forest. One angle, perhaps, I don't know if you've thought about, because, again, I think these top-down policy directives are very important, especially when they can be backed by execution capability. But we shouldn't overlook market forces as well. And I don't know if you've considered as part of your proposal these things like a carbon trading market, which China recently launched, and to the degree that one can harness as many different forces as possible. So political forces, market forces, moral suasion, public sentiment, whether that's through public service ads, marketing campaigns, etc. That to the degree that you have a more comprehensive way of tackling these problems, you might get greater interest and a greater likelihood of success as well. But again, excellent proposal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We still got about 1.5 minutes.
Yeah, I can still add something.
Actually, ecological civilization and environmental protection is an important topic. China has gone a long way along this path. People say that per capita GDP, when the per capita GDP is less than $4,500, any economic growth have to be paid by have come as the price of environment. The business community need to participate using the market, guaranteeing that development will not come at the price of the ecological protection. Actually, there are a lot of lessons we can sum up. Of course, we have done some something not that successful we can learn from other countries, so we will know how we can get better in future. Thank you for your point. I want to add something about climate change and ecological protection. It is global, it's surpass nation and country. So I agree with Andy's view, how we can get help horizontally. I have participated, like Madam Wang said, it's an entrepreneurial obligation. I have participated in the Alashan Protection Council. I have done that for over 10 years. We protect a lot of ecological species in the desert. We have planted many trees, and we work with companies to do the product with other businesses. A lot of big companies participating as well. We are very happy that the young people are concerned about it. Success or not, that's not important. The focus of the business community is critical. I would like to introduce the resources in the environmental protection to you.
A lot of comments is shows a lot of people are caring about climate change and environment. And thank you, Jory. Thank you, Jacob. And we can communication later. And next is please. I want to introduce is Dr. Qu Mei, the Associate Research Fellow of Global Talents Association. Please.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great honor for me to present our IEN here. IEN is an exchange and cooperation platform for people committed to making international education benefit a wider community. International education is a term that has evolved into a lot of variants at different times. But in general, it may refer to a kind of education that integrates an international, intercultural, and global dimension into its purposes, functions, and delivery. However, in my previous research, I found that international education actually could be quite exclusive, which means that only a small group of people have access to it. And this has created two groups of students, with one group who might be more internationally oriented. And I think in an era when the tensions between globalization and anti-globalization are more and more intense, I think maybe this will cause a very serious problem. So I wrote down my worry in one of my papers, and later I found that I'm not the only one who are worrying about this. But the voices and actions of changing the situation is far from enough. So I'm proposing IEN here. It targeted at groups from all kinds of backgrounds who has lacks access to international education, and it do three things: research, networking, and dissemination. So if you are also a person who believes that a peaceful world is built, it's not built by a small group of internationally oriented people, but by everyone who is from different backgrounds. You're welcome to join us on the LinkedIn group below here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to invite Ms. Wang to give some comments.
Thank you, Chumei. 你刚才
You mentioned it's a great proposal because currently the resources of the education resources has been uneven. It has compromised the growth of different economies. In order to overcome the challenge, there are many organizations trying a lot of things. For example, to organize the forums and initiatives. For example, Fazheng Group and Wangfu School. We have worked with the Global Education Forum, one of the initiators. We have done some successful trial in this area. Global Education Forum was established in 2018.
And currently, our chairman, Wang Guangfang, who was scheduled to be here, and I was here to representing him. I'm here to representing him. So for the FOW for World of Education is about the business leaders and high-level educational policy makers and also consultants and also the famous education researchers and institutions. This is the institution sharing with us the platform to share with, and he has also organized so many different forums about the education equalities and also how to educate women and to let them return to the professional workplace. And they have made a lot of attempts by organizing several different sessions of the forums. And I hope this kind of organization could balance the inequality in the education field. And for example, the Wangfu School under our legal persons group is determined to work with 25 years. So their school is determined to breed up the international talents with the international perspective. And by integrating all kinds of international resources, they like to provide all kinds of the international perspectives to the students. And we really need a bunch of experts who can tell a good story of China in the international arena. So there are so many things needs to be done for us. We need to weaken the inequalities in the education sectors. And we also need to let the strong schools help the weak ones. And we are also going to use the technology to promote the education equality. For example, we can use the internet, and we are using many different kinds of the internet after the COVID-19. And the online education and international education to represent these qualities in education, and this proposal is very important. Thank you.
Yeah, but we are kind of less of time.
So I maybe just have a couple of questions. One, I wonder if you've thought about which area you'll prioritize first from a functional perspective. So would you focus on course development, content development, curriculum development, meaning deciding which target audience you want to focus on and then pulling together an effective learning plan for them? Or will you focus on what in the tech world might be called customer success, meaning getting people onto your learning platform, making sure they know how to use it and they can be successful? So I wonder if you've thought about those questions. And then second, from a prioritization perspective, what do you see as the most important target groups, either geographically or by some sort of demographic or even psychographic way of looking at it? So, or maybe focusing on women, focusing on young children, people looking to start businesses, etc. But just a couple questions, but really, I think an important initiative that you're working on. Thank you.
Let me take another 30 seconds here. I think your proposal addresses two of the most important issues that the world is facing going forward. One is, how do we make globalization and the new technology benefit everybody? How does it help poor people? And your program of spreading the education among making it cheaper and making it available to everybody is a very good idea. The other big issue that it helps facing the world is misunderstandings that could possibly lead to international conflict, in the worst case, war. And I think giving average people a chance to understand lives in other countries is a very important step that this could help.
Okay, thank you for the comments, and thank you Dr. Chu, and we can talk later at the Young Innovatea session. Thank you. And the next is next two actually is two proposals about technology innovation, and they have kind of send their video as a technological way to introduce their proposal. So we will in one time to show their two videos, and then we can comment together. And they are actually watching the live broadcast of this workshop, so your comments can be heard by them. Okay, please. The first video is Abdul Radam Hossain, co-founder at Amal Watches.
Whether we are happy, sad, stressed, or relaxed. We are used to wearing smartwatches on our wrist to keep track of our heart. What if I told you there was a better alternative? Smartwatches are good for sports, but for applications, they are not so great. Small changes in the heart rate can be better because it uses technology that transfer large amounts of data. Another issue is motion artifact. Producers unreliable data in the results. In 2019, 20.1 million smartwatches were sold in the US. Not everyone voted for sports. What about the rest? Hello, my name is Dr. Hossain, and I'm a biomedical engineer. In my thesis, I found out that many of the issues with smartwatches can be lowered or eliminated using the ear instead of the wrist. We are proposing a new headset design for Karim without holding on. The wearable model is expected to be $17.1 billion by 2026. Our design will focus on mobile applications. The impact of industries extend beyond healthcare, including education, entertainment, and professional sports. We are ready to start this journey. Do you want to join us? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the next is the
Excited to introduce today our proposal for the AI development. Visualize, predict, recommend, and cooperate for promoting socioeconomic development. Our proposal is based on cutting-edge technology, such as big data, artificial intelligence, decision-making, and more. It all starts from collecting relevant data, such as education cover, infrastructure, healthcare cover, and more. But what should we do with all this data? Our platform is a multi-layered platform, while the first layer is visualization. This is where our users, policymakers, and leadership from all over the world will be able to interact with the system, provide their input, and see some data in real time. But the most innovative part is actually have them on its back. While data is being processed using some artificial intelligence algorithms, it will provide possible options for actions and policies with their predicted results and recommend on the most effective ones. The final result is a data-driven decision-making process. And eventually, it will also recommend on potential cooperation for users across the globe. Our solution is not only innovative, but also feasible. We are relying on industry-proven technology, and we are calling talents from all over the world to help us and develop it together as it will be managed as an open source project. Thank you, and have a good day.
Okay, I'd like to invite our experts to give comments about these two proposals. I think you have 6 minutes. I think maybe Andy is really expert of this.
Okay, well, I'm certainly happy to start. About the first one, I guess one question that I have, and I don't know if you've considered, is that what do you consider what you're offering? Is it a feature, is it a product, or is it a company? And what I mean by this is if you think of it as a feature, it can be added to an existing product, perhaps the earphones that you wear to listen to music. Or if you see it as a separate standalone product, or do you see yourself building a company around it? So I think this is a classic kind of early stage investor question, which presupposes that you are looking for some sort of commercial application for what you're doing. So that's my question or comment for you. For the AI development map, so you said it's open source, but I guess I wasn't clear. Do you see this as a for-profit type of activity, or is it something maybe along the lines of Wikipedia? And related to that question as well, where are you in the value creation continuum? Are you a data company? Are you a technology company? Or are you an application company? And anyway, those are the questions I have. But I think both of you guys are addressing an important opportunity in a very interesting way.
Okay, thank you, Andy. And any other comments?
Well, I thought both of them were very interesting ideas. But of course, from the short proposals, I don't understand technology well enough to know about it going forward. The one thing I'd recommend is that they be more specific about what their business model is. That's sort of the point that Andy was making. How do they intend to finance the program? What's the exact benefit to consumers, et cetera? Especially on the data one, I'd like to know more about where the data is coming from and also how they guarantee privacy of their users. Are they just mining data from their users? What's the guarantee for how the data is going to be used, and what kinds of protections does it have for its users and for the components of the data?
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
我是听到这个，因为我本人对。
I'm not quite familiar with the technologies. Artificial intelligence is widely applicable to the education sector. Moving forward, how do we optimize the applications of the technologies? And it also needs to be combined with modern technologies, to be combined with voices, the images, and we need to explore into the new territory for the multiple applications. So my question is, how do you enable those students to benefit from that? How do you let the students really need of them benefit from them? So another different applications cannot be beneficial to all the students, all the people, including some of the children in the poor countries, and including some of the poor families in the developed countries. They are not able to reach such advanced technology. So how do you address that problem? It is a very universal problem. It is a very universal question, because we have been asking with many different audience who have talked about the technical applications and the challenges it is facing. And I think moving forward, this is something that we should address. So I'd like to add up. I think it's very interesting. The topic is, I much look forward to its latest progression. Last year, I was talking to the admissions of the CCG, and I was talking about that the interpretations for one song is very different. The interpretations for one rhythm is also very different. And can we find some of the people with high application technologies? So what kind of image are they revealing? Are those images going to enable some of the common people to inspire them? And at that time, academician He told me that even if we have such a technology, the relationship between the data and also the image and also the media already existed. So I am thinking that this is under common way, and how do we address the imagination, the music, and how do we present our way of thinking is also a very good way to think about it.
And let's call a kind of end of this session, but the communication will going on. Next session is Young Innovatea. We kind of invite all the the audience and the speakers and all the authors of these proposals to have some tea and have some rest and also communication about their proposals. And we will back about in 15 minutes. Thank you.
Now we will have the Young Innovatea. May we invite you to the lobby and enjoy a 15-minute tea break. 接下来是我们的青年创想茶叙，请各位来宾移步外侧叙厅，享用15分钟的茶歇时间。The plenary 2 will start at 2:45 and please be aware of the time. Thank you. 下一个论坛将于2点45开始，请大家注意时间，谢谢。
Hi, thanks so much for your comment. Actually, I wrote recently for the Wall Street Journal Chinese about the carbon market. I agree with you a lot. I think it's a great way to sort of direct the private sector to work on it. So thanks a lot for your comment. Really
sorry, I missed in your intro, you're a journalist?
I work at a publishing company. I publish books, and it's the same company as Nature, the science journal. But sort of for my fun and free time, I write myself. In English, I typically write for Nature, and then I'm writing a longer piece for Noema magazine, and in Chinese, I write for the Financial Times and the Wall Street Journal. Sure. Thank you so much. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that.
1、2、3。
享受几分钟茶歇。我马上过来。
差不多是吧？超量是吧？好。Two. Hi everyone. The plenary 2 will start soon. Please go to Hall BC and take your seat. Thank you. 大会论坛2即将开始，请各位回到 BC 厅内并尽快就座，谢谢。The plenary 2 will start soon. Please go to Hall BC and take your seat. Thank you. 各位来宾，大会论坛2即将开始，请各位尽快就座，谢谢。The plenary 2 will start soon. Please take seat. Thank you. 各位来宾，大会论坛2即将开始，请各位尽快就座，谢谢。And for COVID-19 prevention, we advise you to wear masks through the event. Thank you for your cooperation. 为了防范新冠疫情传播的需求，请您在会议中戴好口罩，谢谢您的合作。 可以开始了吗？太热杀。Hello. The plenary will start soon. Please take seat. Thank you. And okay. Welcome back, and let's move on to plenary 2, the power of young voices, climate change and sustainable development. Please welcome the host of the session, Ms. Elspeth Van Peerdon. Ms. Van Peerdon is a sinologist and the editorial consultant at Beijing Review. 有请本场主持人、北京周报英文编辑汉璇家潘苑莎女士。
开没开啊？开啊！啊，女士们、先生们。
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the second panel on climate change and sustainable development, the power of young voices. Now, we all know that climate change is posing a great challenge to today's world. And many millennials and Gen Zs today are pretty much, have had a chord struck. We've all seen the climate marches back in Europe in 2018-19. Today in China, we see an uprise in recycling, upcycling. And of course, we have more good news this year regarding the 13 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. Luckily, in February, the United States decided to return to the Paris Agreement. The European Union in July issued its first climate bill. And of course, China, because we are in the capital, has incorporated the building of an ecological civilization into its national strategic plan, as well as announced its carbon dioxide emission peak for 2030 and neutrality goals for 2060 at the 75th General Assembly of the United Nations. That is a lot to say. So first of all, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Chai Qi-min, who unfortunately could not be here, but we do have him via video link. Dr. Chai. Okay, we do not have Dr. Chai right now. We are just going to move straight on to the core question, which is how can we inspire, engage, and mobilize younger generations to engage in the battle at hand, that is climate change. And for this purpose, I would like to invite to the stage the following representatives from various fields to share some thoughts and ideas on how to promote sustainable development. Rafael Enrique Zerbeto, journalist at China International Publishing Group. You may come to the stage. We then have Gildas Lusto, Managing Director of the Alliance Française in China. Gildas, there you are, thank you. Then we go on to Joseph Olivier Mendo, co-founder of the China-Africa Youth Foundation, and who also heads the delegation of African youth in China. That sounded very, thank you. Ksenia Atmakhova, PR and Marketing Manager of Ballistic Architecture Machine, as well as their lead of New Silk Road initiatives. Ksenia? There you are. And then Anthony Wang, private equity investor and Schwarzman scholar. And last but certainly not least, we have Pierre Do, researcher in water infrastructure and consultant in international development. Pierre? There you are. Bienvenue. We were talking about doing this in French because, 5 out of 6 speak French, but, let's stick to English. Is this, yeah, okay. So we want to keep things a bit more interactive, a bit more engaging, and also spark a discussion with and between these representatives of various fields. Starting with the first question, how do younger generations view global climate issues? What type of sentiments would you say does it stir up? And I would like to first give the word to Gildas.
Thank you, Elspeth. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm really happy and really proud to be here today. And first of all, I would like to have a special thought for all the victims of the floods we had recently in China, in Henan, in Zhengzhou, but also in Europe, in Germany, in Belgium, all the fires in the North America, in Russia. I say that because I think nowadays the young people, the young generation, they get the sense of these global issues just watching the news, and I hope they won't get used to it because we need to do something to change that. When I welcome new students at Alliance Française, I don't want them to, after a couple of weeks, I just don't want them to be able to speak French. I want them to understand better the world, the different cultures, and we work a lot. One of my priorities is to give them a sense of morality. So we organize a lot of activities, for example, with the French Embassy in China. In October and November, we will have the 8th Franco-Chinese Month of Environment. They will have conferences, workshops, exhibitions, where we will talk about all these global issues. I did a PhD a few years back about corporate social responsibility in China. And one of the things I studied is social psychology. So basically, we all have values. Values will influence attitudes, and attitudes will influence your behavior. So the question is, how can you influence your values? What can change your values? And I think this is education. This morning, the ambassador of Egypt told us knowledge is fundamental, and I totally agree with him. Knowledge is the key. Education is the key. Education is key to addressing climate change. So I interviewed, for my PhD, I interviewed many Chinese students who study business, international business, and they were really good in accounting, finance, HR, marketing. But I could feel there was a lack of environmental training. And I think this is what we have to do now. We here in this room, we have people from top Chinese university, Fudan, Tsinghua, UIB, many more. So we really need to find a way to make a learning plan and to help students to have a sense of morality. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Gilles. Knowledge is power indeed. I could not agree more. Would any of the other participants like to chime in or refute or add?
Well,
Yes.
I would say the young people are actually more aware of environmental issues and how critical that is. We just had the COVID-19 and some, I would say, environmental issues are also as really a big of a deal as COVID-19. So we have more and more youth aware of that because worldwide we have 1.8 billion young people, and where I come from in Africa, 60% are under 25, the age of 25. And they actually start realizing how powerful their voice can be. They start realizing how impactful they can be. So much young people around the world, so much young people in Africa, so they can make a difference. So they start thinking how, let's say we have to change the past. Maybe the later generation, they were not much more aware of environmental issues, but now we have more opportunities with technology, etc. So I think young people now are trying to actually have their print in later development. They are actually trying to be more impactful, to change the game, actually, to change the path of, yeah. So I will stop there to give the opportunity for other people to speak. Thank you.
I just would like to echo what you said, Joseph, and extend upon the point that you said about the young people and bringing up the African continent. It makes me think from our experience as a design company. We have a project that we started working on, a school project in Rwanda, which we envisioned to be a self-sustaining campus, right? So as outsiders to this country, as designers, we put the vision this should be sustainable. And I think the biggest discovery or maybe even misconception that's very relevant to this discussion is the realization how much more sustainable in daily life and how much more aware developing countries are because of their scarce resources. And at the same time, if we think about how much, on average, like how big the young population in developing countries is. So it's the major bulk of their population. So this actually means that you know, young people in developing countries that are already living sustainable lives, they have that impact, and we may not realize that to the same extent here in more developed countries or in Western countries, like define it in different ways, but having a more comfortable lifestyle. When you are, you know, a kid in Rwanda and there is only this little water that you can use a day, you are actually using it way more efficiently than we could ever educate our kids to do here.
Might I perhaps ask Pierre, would you have any input there with the water infrastructure? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I would like really to thank the other panelists because they outlined very interesting thoughts about how to understand actually the problem we want to solve. As a water practitioner, we try to really address the problem and understand it in its whole. And for example, if we address climate change issue, actually climate change is not an issue itself, but if we talk about flooding, if we talk about drought, and then directly it touches people's life. And I think one of the first steps, and that we are trying all here, I think, to get in, is like to understand which problem we try to solve. And the problems are actually when they affect people's. Here, we are all here because we know that climate change is a problem. Maybe sustainability is something to seek because it affects our lives, right? And it's not only the animals in the North Pole, or like it affects really our lives. And I think the question I want to raise here and is like for the youth also, for us, is like to think about the issue we want to address in our scale and the issue where we want also to influence the leaders and government. Thanks.
Thank you. And also what all four of you actually addressed was the fact that people are doing this across different areas, not necessarily, or from agriculture to water infrastructure to self-sustainability, even in fashion. The sustainable red thread runs throughout, which brings me to the next question. I'm going to the other side of this row. How can younger generations use their expertise in different areas to promote sustainable development? For example, you know, carbon emissions reduction. Rafael, do you have anything you would like to share?
Okay. So we have people from different areas working on sustainable development because sustainability means a complete change in the way we live. So people from different areas can work in this field, can do something for sustainability. If you are an architect, you can work about sustainable cities. If you are an economist, you can think about an economic model that is more sustainable, for example, taxing carbon emissions. And so everybody can, in any way, get engaged in sustainability. But what I noticed, especially in 2012, when I worked at a Rio Plus 20s, I was a delegate of TEO, the World Esperanto Youth Organization, at that meeting. And there I saw many people from different scopes, different cultural backgrounds, different expertise. And then they were not really having a dialogue. My feeling was that activists from NGOs and representatives of civil society, they were focused in lobbying the politicians and diplomats or like finding partnerships. They were not really into discussing. Everybody prepared for the conference for months just to show a point of view, but they didn't prepare to discuss, to know other people's point of view. And then especially I saw representatives from indigenous peoples, from Asia and Pacific, from Africa, from Latin America. They looked like they were lost in the conference. They are the people who know most about sustainability. They have a sustainable lifestyle inherited from their ancestors. And they looked like lost. They couldn't, they didn't know where to go, what to do. They were just like at the side. And even people was not listening to them because they were focused on the diplomats that could really address something to the main conference. So I've been thinking that this model of conference need to be modified for us to promote more interaction, so people from different areas can interact better and exchange experiences.
Right, go from the hypothetical to the more practical via communication. Communication is also key. I believe, I believe Xenia and Anthony had something to add to this.
Yeah, I guess, on the topic of how do young professionals make an impact, right? I think just looking at the diversity of this panel, it's easy to come to realize you don't need to be an environmental activist to make impact, right? I think just the various vocations that we have, I think to a certain extent, we can all make certain impact, right? So I think just generally from my experience, currently in private equity and investing, right? We've seen this tremendous trend and theme of investing into environmentally sustainable businesses. I think gone are the days where you think about profitability and sustainability as being mutually exclusive, but you realize over the long term that for any business to create long-term value for shareholders, they need to adopt the best practices. It's not just a marketing ploy anymore, right? It's actually concrete. And I think just in terms of how we're looking at it, right? In fact, some of our most successful investments have all been in the environmental sustainability space, right? Renewable energy, NEVs. I can tell you that if you invested in any of Tesla, NIO, Xiaopeng stocks this year, you'd be sitting here with a big smile on your face, right? And we're also looking into that, right? In terms of renewable energy, charging stations for EVs and so forth. So, I think the takeaway here is really just depending on whatever you do, it's all interconnected at the end of the day.
We'll move right on to Xenia.
Yes. Well, I think you pointed out as well the importance of communication and I would say the creation of visions, right? Policymakers, they're there to set out goals, to steer us in a direction. For example, China taking up the commitment to reduce the carbon emissions to 2060 by 2060 and go carbon zero, right? And what happens then is we have the engineers that need to figure out and are figuring out the technologies, right? But in the end, we see with many things, the big challenge is to really integrate it in people's lives, right? And to make people want to change their lifestyle. And that's a very difficult thing. It's not enough to have the goal out there and to have the technology, but it's really about like how, well, I mean, we humans, like if it takes one more extra step, you're not going to do it. And so I think that's where the role of design and generally vision making and also even storytelling and communication becomes extremely important. And for designers, for us, it's a challenge in terms of integrating all that technology, making it applicable in people's actual lives and encouraging them, inspiring them to use it. And so in that sense, in design industry, going from industrial design to architecture to landscape, urban planning, increasingly also the vibe is there that designers should step up and actually, engage themselves in these urban issues. That's something that resonates across the entire industry, and that's very promising.
Right. And would you like to add something?
Just going let's say, bringing some cases, because I think it should also be better to actually make use of the environment, know what your environment can provide, and to see how to actually lower the carbon footprint. There is the example, for example, for Ghana, you have this kind of motorbike from bamboos that they thought of to creating jobs and also reducing the carbon footprint. And bamboo, we all know that it is easy to grow and it absorbs the CO2 easily. We also have like Ethiopia, when they realized that 16% of the country, it's actually the 16% of arable lands, then they initiated the tree planting project, where they actually broke the record of the whole world, like tree planting in also other countries like East Cameroon or Uganda, where they actually used like the banana fibers to make this kind of biodegradable plastic bags. So these are the ways that people are trying to use the environment to actually reduce the carbon footprint. And I think this is actually an example to learn from. So just to get to specific, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, because it brings us to the next question, which is a very simple one, and it doesn't only apply to millennials or Gen Z, it applies to everybody. What type of activities can people undertake in their daily lives to create this more sustainable vibe and awareness? You already mentioned a really good one, which is making use of what is right in front of you. Very true. But of course, you can also think a bit more outside the box, get creative with it. So I would like to first start with Pierre.
Yeah, thank you. About creativity, it's one of the key for research and academics. We try to provide solutions for problems that we encounter in lives. And about climate change and sustainability, I think one of the key for maybe addressing these issues is to provide the data. So depending on the field you are involved, but maybe one key for us as researchers is to gather the data that we need to, for example, address the issue that we seek. For example, if it's about flood or drought, we gather data about rivers and all the data related, social data, economic data, also the economic impact, for example, on the people's livelihood. And for example, on the project we worked with the World Bank, it was a project related to the Mekong Delta and how to improve people's life there and how to make the area more sustainable. One of the issues was the salt intrusion. So people get salt in the land and then cannot raise crops. Like it brings issues for like food supply and a lot of issues related to that. Then children who cannot eat then cannot go to school, and then it brings a lot of social issue behind. And so I think understanding all this chain of issues and where do we start to apply our solution, I think is one of the key. Maybe one also encouragement for the youth here, because I guess the purpose of this event is also to maybe give some ideas and provide some inspiration for the youth, is to start with your own field. I think Joseph said that very clearly, is that we have the key today as youth to make a change. Maybe not a big change by ourselves, but we have the first step. And I think it's just an invitation maybe for the youth here who are listening, is like in their own field, they can do something already. Like if you are a researcher, then you can maybe drive data and do stuff like this. But if you feel like investment, then you can invest in green bonds and do stuff like this. But I think the purpose is to know that where you are, you can make a step to drive sustainability.
Thank you. And given this is a very broad question, I would actually like to pose it to every member on the panel. Gildas?
Yeah, I will be brief, but yeah, as you said, I think creativity is the main thing here. Environment is not boring. We have to be creative to find ways of making kids like working on environmental projects. And at Alliance Française, soon we will have this workshop about arts and environment, where kids will come with empty bottles, recycled objects, like stuff they don't need at home, and we will try to create together some art, some masterpiece that we will after exhibit in different Alliance Française in China. So yeah, we have to make it fun, so people will be part of it, and it is fun actually. Yeah.
Thank you. Joseph?
Very briefly, I would say peer-to-peer education. Peer-to-peer education, because youth among themselves, they communicate very easily, and also it goes alongside with raising awareness. We have so many youth-led organizations where they can actually convey, where they can actually share their experiences, and I think this is actually the way they can show the experiences to a broader audience and maybe to the world. So I will just keep it short. So I say peer-to-peer education, and also through that, awareness raising. Thank you.
Xenia?
Yes, thank you. I think with the things said, I would like to go back to the basics, right? And starting with concept of emergence. So for us to really flip the boat and make this change, you know, the big goals, like I mentioned earlier, it's a direction, but it's in the end about the small things adding up. And it's about going back to the basics of what can I do and what can I do today, right now? What's the first, easiest step? And it can be as simple as I will take the bike to work today, or you know, I will separate my trash today, right? And the trash issue might be a bit more out of your control, but the part that is in your control, you can make a difference. There are people that go in trashless, right? And I think that's just very powerful because it's emergence. It's the small things adding up. It's your actions inspiring other people to do the same or to try something different. And the way it works, that then from the bottom up, the whole system can transform from within by taking these simple steps. So it's about taking it simple on a daily basis.
Yeah, take that bike, use that bottle, not the plastic one. Anthony?
Yeah, I think going back, it's really just a two-step process, right? One is understanding, be aware, and then spread that awareness, right? In terms of just you know, just changing public perception on the importance of sustainability, you know, people might think, hey, it's not cool to drive an EV, or it might not be cool to recycle. Well, I think the first step is just understanding where the problems are. How can you be a part, even if it's a small part, in changing that?
Thank you. Rafael?
Yeah. Sorry. Well, I think we have been discussing sustainability for more than 30 years, right? And until now, people cannot see a real effect of that in their day-by-day lives. So this is an important challenge for the youth. They need to show something. We need to make people trust us, make people believe that we are doing more than just negotiating, just talking. We had lots of conferences on sustainability already, but people feel that nothing is changing. Even though we know that there are some interesting initiatives on sustainability around the world, society doesn't feel that way. So we need to gain people's trust. And of course, the youth is very good in innovation, and they can find innovative ways to do this, to gain people's trust. But of course, we need to show results. We need to show something concrete about sustainability to make people engaged. When people see that the society is changing, that we are on the way to a sustainable society, they tend to get engaged, to join us. But if they feel that nothing is changing, they will just think that we are wasting time.
The monkey see, monkey do concept. It is. I'm not. Dear John just informed me that the speech by our keynote speaker, Dr. Chai Chi-min, is ready to roll. So you can all catch your breath, have a sip of water from that plastic bottle. Chai Chi-min is the director of the International Cooperation Department with the National Center for Climate Change Strategy and International Cooperation. He is an advisor to local governments for low carbon city and emission trading scheme pilots. And he's also a columnist with China Daily and Caixin Finance. Ready to roll when you are.
My name is Chai Chi-min. I'm from NCC, China. It's a great honor to present as a global youth leader dialogue, typically on the Plenary for climate change and sustainable development. My topic is about China's progress to carbon neutrality and also our youth efforts for this progress. As we know now, globally, we are working harder for carbon neutrality under Paris Agreement. Climate change is our challenges faced by all human beings, and when countries pleasure their carbon neutrality targets around the middle century, we can see amongst our 70% GDP countries, regions, they are taking effort. And China, among them, actually have very eager to achieve all the carbon neutrality before 2060, and also have a near-term target for emission peaking before 2030. Lots of supporting efforts already carried on for this progress. For example, we had carbon intensity targets and non-fossil fuel development targets, carbon sink, and also typically for some newly developed energy like wind and solar power. Of course, if we want to achieve a deeper decarbonization in China, actually we should make great efforts than ever between the sectors and industries. For example, we have to promote sustainable energy demand management in mainly transportation industries and decarbonize the power sectors by increasing more renewable energy and nuclear as well. Electrification and in new sectors, for example, the transportation, we use more electric vehicles. For buildings, we have the VIPs. For industries, more and more shift the coal, oil, and gas to the electricity and hydrogen. And we also should apply some new technologies. For example, the CDR, the carbon dioxide removal technology, the CCUS, and also we should make efforts to mitigate non-CO2 emissions in future. Now, in China, and more and more efforts from the private sectors, for example, the enterprises, they are promised earlier emissions and carbon neutrality than the countries. So they are leading some kind of industries to achieve carbon neutrality earlier, and also make efforts for like low carbon or zero carbon technology innovation. We can see lots of efforts together with China's modernization, urbanization, and also the industrialization. We can see lots of new technology will be deployed in the future, but not by this generation, but also by young generation. They are making efforts for such kind of technology cooperation and also the policy reform in the future. The carbon treaty not only bring the changes to the social, to the economy sectors, but also to the social side. We can see there will be a lot of shift of the population, employments, and other factors will be happen. So it's a revolution actually for different sectors. We can see the change in the future, and also behind such kind of change, lots of new regimes should be used. We made our estimates in China as if we want to achieve our carbon neutrality before 2060. Lots of green investments should be made. The total amount is as much as $21 trillion by 2060. So it's huge investment actually, and not only for the mitigation, but also for the adaptation. Lots of risk already rising from the climate change in China. For example, several days ago, in Henan provinces, there's climate disaster from the uranium. And also for China, we also discussed about some kind of just transition. Because we mentioned about the change for the future in industry sectors. So agreements, typically for the young generation, there will be very different situation than before. So we also should consider such kind of efforts, influences for the future. And more and more stakeholders now join climate change. It's good situation for us. For example, the enterprises and also some young people from the colleges and pioneer leaders, actually, they are joining climate change initiative. I believe in the future, with such kind of young participation, we will achieve our sustainable development future for our Mother Earth, and we will have a green development in the future, not only for economy, but also for brighter future for young people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chai. Okay, so on to the next question, and I'm going to stick with what I just saw in the last picture. We had Leo DiCaprio. Who doesn't love Leo? We all love Leo. Who is a big advocate for sustainable development, blah, 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 climate change battle, but then steps onto a private jet and goes to Moscow or something, right? We have Greta Thunberg, also known as Pippi Longstocking. She inspired a movement. I'm not quite sure how, still. I am a millennial, but maybe I don't get Gen Z, I don't know. But the question is then, I suppose these two can work in a motivational way, right? You see somebody like Leonardo DiCaprio support, the battle against climate change, so you will engage. But how does one really motivate, let alone engage? And I mean in an honest manner, not because your friends are going to march for the climate, that I too get a day off, so I'm also going to march for the climate and then litter the field with plastic cups and McDonald's bags, which is what happened in Holland and Belgium in 2019, FYI. Was, yeah. But so how do you honestly motivate and engage younger generations to participate or try to actively make a change in their daily lives? And I'm posing this question to all of you. But I would like to start with Rafael on the other side of the...
Okay, well, first of all, the United Nations has the program Education for Sustainable Development addressing these issues. It's about new generations, so we need to educate them for this. Nowadays, in most countries, sustainable development is not an important part of the school curriculum. So we need to change that reality. The schools need to educate for sustainable development. That means educating about the importance of sustainability, what is sustainability, and so on, so people from early age can be aware of the importance of these issues and start also a movement for sustainability, supporting sustainable initiatives.
Okay, but for example, that in many schools, I went to a Catholic school in Belgium, and I'm pretty sure some of you also attended Catholic schools, right? There were no vending machines, for example. No. Everything was in cups, and you had to bring your own lunchbox, and so on and so forth. I mean, get rid of the vending machines. That might, be setting an example, like a practical one. When you're talking about schools, okay, implementing sustainable development into the curriculum.
So, for example, what I see nowadays that it's being more developed in education nowadays is about recycling. So at schools, the teachers usually tell the children they need to recycle their trash. So this bottle is made of plastic, you put in one bin, the other trash bin is for metals, the other is for organic waste, etc. But I worked at a science museum at my university a long time ago. And I remember I was surprised when a group of children from a school, they were visiting our museum, and they started getting plastic cups to get water at a point. They were just to drink water, but they got one and throw, got another and throw, got another and throw. And then we came to the kids and told them, why don't you reuse the same glass? Why are you throwing them away? Are you not conscious that it has an environmental problem? We should avoid producing waste. And one of the kids just told us, it's not a problem because we can recycle. So you can see that sometimes you have good intentions in doing something, but the result is quite opposite. Instead of being aware of the importance of reducing waste production and recycling what, like the minimum waste that we do, like giving preference to recyclable waste, but at first we need to reduce consumption. But those kids were doing quite the opposite. They thought, if this can be recycled, so I can waste as much as I want. And this is one problem that I see in this kind of initiatives. So we need to learn how to educate people for sustainable development, especially children, in a way that they can really understand the essential concept of sustainability.
Thank you. Anthony, as a private equity investor, maybe throw some money at it?
Yeah, I guess on the point of motivation, right? I think deep down as humanity, right, we all know what's right, we all know what's wrong, right? Saving the planet is obviously right, but I think, if you take another layer, right, and think about, okay, what actually motivates people, well, maybe it's economical, maybe it's social acceptance, and I think these two things are things that definitely relate, right? I think from, the driving a combustible engine car versus an NEV, well, think about the money you'll be saving in the long term. Well, do you really want to be the outlier when everyone starts to understand, and especially as millennials and Gen Z appreciate the fact that, hey, this world needs to still be here for my kids and grandkids and so forth? Well, I think social acceptance is another way. And I think, just organizations definitely can lead by example as well. Think about employee retention, and if they set the right principles, set the right messaging, branding, I think generally speaking, right, employees will tend to follow. So leading by example.
Good old-fashioned peer pressure. I like it. Thank you. Xenia.
Well, I think one thing, my perception is that younger generations generally are more value-driven, like Gen Z and so on. I have a sister, she's 10 years younger than me, and the way she chooses where she wants to work, and it's not exactly sustainability, but her first internship was a marketing company that only hires women. And so her logic, you know, how it worked out later is a different story. It's a story of expectations versus reality. But her logic and logic of many kids in her generation is, oh, I want to support this cause. Oh, these guys are doing, like, they have a bigger purpose. They have a bigger cause. They want to support women and empower them. I want to work with an organization like that. So they're more sensitive for these kind of values more than a bigger political system or a bigger movement. Now, I think connecting to Anthony's point, given this characteristic, that lead by example kind of, like the strategy can actually pan out much better than we expect and we predict based on our own logic, experiences, and our own perception, right? We grew up in a different time. So that's one point. And the second point I would like to raise, it's maybe not as actionable as your initial question was, but going back to the concept of sustainability. Sustainability, it's literally from the word sustain. So to your point, indeed, like one thing is recycling, reusing, right? But sustaining is basically using that cup instead of throwing it out and reusing it, right? So in design, and also this is a point that's very strong in heritage preservation these days, it's about making, what do you do so people care about a place? So that's why we pay so much, that's why design is so important, and good design can contribute to sustainability in the sense that if you design something very well, whether it's a cup or a place or, you know, a bigger system, when people care for it, when they love something, when it brings them joy, they will care to sustain it. That's a basic principle of basically sustaining things. So making people care. And so I think a more implicit education element is not maybe literally talking about sustainability, but teaching people to care about whether it's your classroom and keeping it clean, or your backyard, or you know, your pets and people close to you. Teaching people to care.
Yeah, teach them to value. Thank you. Joseph, vas-y.
Well, they pretty much said everything, but I think there is still such a trend where there is still a distance, where the young people are still more considering themselves as beneficiary. If we talk about the SDGs or the Agenda 2030, they most think like them in terms of, beneficiary. But I think to encourage them, they also need to know that they're actually architects. They're actually partners, I would say. So they call them torch bearers. You know, whatever policy is happening, when it comes to implementation, they are the torch bearer. So this is some responsibility that they need to know. And to go alongside with the previous speakers, it's just to give a little, in Africa we say, let's say it's one thing to plant a tree, but another thing to make it live. So not just planting trees, not just planting a lot of trees, but actually taking care of it. Actually making sure that the trees lives, leaving a legacy for the younger generation. As we are seeing now, the drawbacks of, the former generation. So you have to now make your tree live for the younger generation. So I think this is some commitment and responsibility, that the sense of responsibility and commitment, not just being a recipient. This is actually something that I think the youth should be aware of. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Gildas, also you have a focus on new youth value, so looking forward to this.
Maybe I want to get back to Leonardo DiCaprio and and Greta Thunberg, because I think nowadays too many, or at least part of young people, give too much credit to a few KOL, the key opinion leaders. And the problem is most of these KOL now are just here to sell stuff that you don't even need. And I hope that we could have more leaders like this young Greta Thunberg or this handsome Leonardo DiCaprio addressing climate change issues. Because today in China and everywhere in the world, it's crazy to see all these people every night going to China, getting the kuaidi, like you have 10 boxes of things you don't even need. So this is a terrible waste for the environment. And I think young people need to engage on social networks and to talk about issues. You don't have to get like millions of followers, just among your friends, your family, and addressing these issues is common sense, and it's really important.
Yeah, thank you. I do think, especially here in China, and I think everybody will agree, we kind of live in this compulsive, consumption-driven society. I try to do my bit and not order online. I go to the store. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Unfortunately, I will repeat a bit what the other panelists said, but I think the two most straightforward ideas I was thinking when we talk about empowering youth is the first is building connections and linkage between peoples and sectors. I think, Anthony, you just mentioned that. I really enjoyed that. It's embracing diversity. And it's like we have diversity in peoples and sectors. And I think all of this, we need to find a way to work together and create some kind of synergy. So, and I think that's one of the key for today youth. They are sometimes isolated when they want to make initiatives that don't have all the information they need. And I think creating bonds or linkage or connections between different people with different sectors, like as we are doing today, I think it's a good start actually for creating a big picture on how to establish climate resiliency. So that's the first idea. The second idea I was thinking is just giving them the chance to make a change. I think too often we see that like in the political arena and saying that, yeah, let's make a change and include more youth. But I think when we see it in a practical way, it's not that happening, right? And especially in one area is this decision-making process. So when, for example, some environmental laws or this kind of things are established, we don't see that much youth included in this arena. But more and more initiatives actually are working on to that, especially on policy making. So a few years ago, the EU Commission started to do this kind of thing. So they start to talk more with youth and try to include their views, their voice into driving policies. So that's one interesting initiative, but we need more of that. And the last point, thinking of how to give a chance for youth to make a change, is to invest in creativity. We talk about a lot of areas, right? How to invest in creativity. I found maybe 3 areas where maybe we as practitioner, either sustainable practitioner, could do is the first one is research. So it's my own area, and it's simply I think getting to know more what you want to address. The second area I could think about is entrepreneurship, building your own initiatives. Either can be a network, either your own company or whatever, your social enterprise. And the third one is, I think it's just to repeat a bit what we said, is to establish networks and partnership actually with like-minded people who want to make that change. I think like change is, I like this idea of like a wave, like a wave, it takes a long time to get to the coast, but when you get to the coast, it's very
I used to think, hey, millennials are babies. Well, the fact of the matter is, most of us are well into our 30s, and we're starting to sit in positions where we can generally make decisions that have lasting impact. Just think about what you want to do in your career, how that can impact the topic of today, and also in the finance sector, an interesting stat was I think there's about $30 trillion worth of like inheritable wealth, right? And I think for us to have this understanding and appreciation to put that money to good use in sustainable businesses, I think that is important.
Thank you. Rafael?
Okay, so this year, in fact, not a long time ago, I joined a trip of GYLD China tours to Jiangxi province, and it was focused in the history of the Communist Party of China. It was inspiring for me to know this history because the party 1 century ago was maybe as big as this audience, or a bit bigger maybe, I don't know. But anyway, nowadays it's the biggest political party in the world. So I always kept thinking, how did they succeed? It's really a big thing. And then during that trip, I realized that the secret was just, they went to the countryside, they talked to the people, they addressed the people's issues, they wanted to know how people live, what they think, which are the problems they face in day-by-day life, and also tried to address those problems by concrete solutions to the people's day-by-day problems they could experience in life. I think this approach is very useful for you to gain people's trust. It's much more efficient than just come to people and say, oh, I want to help you. No, if you go and really do, not only say, people will trust you more and they will feel that they can join you. So after that experience, I realized that this is an inspiration for all of us. We can find like ways to establish a dialogue with the people, not only like stay inside our groups, like I am part of an NGO or a government or an institution and just talk to my fellows there, just a small group. No, we need to go to ordinary people, know what they think about sustainability, what's the impact of sustainability in their day-by-day life, their expectations, and then we need to find innovative ways to address their problems and make the change. So I think the youth is not afraid of innovating and also not afraid to take risks. So this is a role for the youth to think different ways to approach people and to increase awareness on sustainable development.
Thank you. Gilles?
When we talk about climate change, we tend to think that governments and scientists are the only one who can take decisions. But actually, we are all part of the problems, but also all part of the solution. So we have to stick together. Today, I have to say I'm a bit surprised because we didn't talk much about Kunming. But this year, next year, there will be the COP15 in Kunming, the Conference of Parties. As a French, I'm really proud of what happened in Paris in 2015 with the COP21 and the Paris Agreement. So I really hope that young people will be able to attend the Kunming conference this year and maybe next year because of the COVID issues. So I hope it won't be only organizations, scientists, and officials attending this conference. I hope young people will be there at the table, and I hope that we will be able to hear their voices because it's really important.
And let's hope they have something good to say as well and they can listen as well. Next up, we have 3 left. Xenia?
Yeah, I think to echo some of the things that has been said, but the very short answer is do things. Because we talked about how we already talk a lot, we make a lot of plans, but plan and reality always differ. And what you do in any kind of development, right, is you put out that plan and you try to get there as close as possible. And usually it takes rounds and rounds of iterations and trying and failing and doing it again. So the best thing we can do is hit at it, you know, try as many as possible things, experiment, fail, try again, and try to do that as quickly and as much as possible. And a more concrete advice, I would say, for especially people here in China, I would like, you know, so connecting to the keynote speaker, I would like to emphasize of how much of a unique environment you're in here in China right now and how big of an opportunity there is to do something about climate change in China for several reasons. So as I mentioned earlier, we, you know, there are three components to it, right? There needs to be policy goals, the technology, and then the implementation into daily lives, right? So we have the policy goals set out here stronger than anywhere else. And that whole infrastructure is very resilient and very strong. So there is the 2060 goal to carbon neutrality. At the same time, there is the Belt and Road Initiative that itself has a big potential to be carrier of these changes, be a systemic carrier. So that should not be underestimated. So you already are in the best place ever. People want to do things. It's an actual goal. It needs to be reached. And if China sets goals, they work to reach them, right? So that's very unique. You don't need to waste time to get people to agree on this. We agreed on this. Then, of course, we are in a highly technological, high-speed country. So that's another big advantage. You can try things and get them done very quickly and see if they work or not. And on top of that, you're in a very dense, highly populated country with extremely diverse urban and rural environments. So you basically have the whole range of different types of living environments, social classes to experiment with your implementations and technology. So in a way, you're in the best environment possible to try things and to do things. And so I would encourage people that are here, that invested their lives and careers to be in China, to use these opportunities. Whether you're a policymaker, you know, in that realm, set new goals, define them, redefine them. If you're an investor, invest. You know, if you're an educator, educate. If you're a designer, design, and do what you like to do and have fun with it.
Thank you. Pierre?
Yeah, I think the question we try to address today is how youth could achieve sustainable development. And I cannot really think of a precise answer, but there are too many questions that if a youth, you want to be part of the solution. I think the first question would be, what would be specific environmental and social issue that you would like to see to be solved in the next 25 years, for example? Like, what's the thing that you would like to dedicate a bunch of years to work on that and to make this change? I think that's a really cute question. And the second question is, how could you today be part of the solution? Like, how can you start today to be part of the solution? Thanks.
Thank you. Joseph, you have the honor of the last opinion or epiphany.
Then you put a lot of pressure on me. Well, as I mentioned before, if there is something that I want to say, it's just taking the initiative. Make good use of your environment. Like I mentioned, a couple of projects in Ethiopia, Uganda, Cameroon, etc. Even India with the Jatofa project. So youth are the torchbearer of any kind of policy, not just the recipient. So the final words, they used to be this motto that says, think globally, act locally. But I think there is a need to more activism. So maybe act globally, act locally. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, in conclusion, I would like to thank all of our panelists, Pierre, Judas, Joseph, Xenia, Anthony, Raphael, for your input, for your angles, all from your very diverse fields. Thank you. Give them a round of applause, people. And I think in sum, we can sum it up with 3 things. You can criticize me after we get off the stage. Knowledge is power, walk before you run, and cliche, actions speak louder than words. And of course, tone it down on the Taobao, guys. That's it.
Okay, thank you for all the panelists, and especially thank for the Elspeth's very accurate control of the time, and you can have a group photo together. And later, we will have a very brief closing ceremony, and we have a very harvest day, and so we would like to invite the representatives from our 2 organizers to conclude this very harvest day. And firstly, I would like to invite the president of Contemporary Studies, President Yu Yunquan, the president of ACCWS, to give a speech, to give closing remarks of this whole day forum. Please welcome.
I'm going to speak in Chinese. Respectable friends of the youth, as one of the representatives of the organizer, I feel thrilled and excited that under the joint effort, our forum comes to an end, and this has achieved what we have been organizing for several days. It is going to be a wonderful day, and I am actually sharing the 3 feelings from my observation today, 3 keywords. The first one is to thank. In the morning session, we really want to thank organizer and President Wang for their gratifications for all the representatives. As the Academy of Contemporary China and World Studies, we have launched this project, and we really want to thank all the different stakeholders to support us. Because of all of your support, we are able to work until today to achieve such a remarkable result. So I actually want to thank all the relevant institutions, especially the representatives from other different institutions, from the friends from the media, and my dear colleagues, and also our colleagues from the ACCWS, and you have contributed a lot in the organizing effort. And the second part I want to talk about is that I am deeply moved, and by the joint effort, we have achieved our initial target by achieving a periodical result since the launch of the project. As General Secretary Miao has introduced us in the morning, she talked about 3 Ds, and we are going to build a multiple platform for dialogue and opinion exchange. Just as what we are experiencing today, we are building a platform for the young people to let their dreams fly and show their talents and contribute their wisdom, and we are going to share with each other together, and that's actually the target for us to see the result, and I can feel the initial target being achieved, especially the forum. I've been participating with a lot of forums. I think that we have a very unique form of the forums, and we are really honored for what we have achieved, not only by some of the actual practitioners. We also have some of the performances, and we also have some of the proposals, and we have actually collected so many different proposals. The mutual sharing, so we are going to talk about the future changes in terms of the globalizations, digital transformations, and we are actually standing on the current positions to look into the future. And today we have a very good feedback, and in the morning, just as what Mr. IG has talked about, the empowerment. Empowerment is a mutual direction, and we are going to empower the new directions. I think today we have a mutual initiation that the young people is still empowering us, and we are going to empower the future. And we are also going to play the rules of the young people and the initiative for the young people. And finally, as the organizer, I like to say that I like to share with you our understanding toward the future events. Because today, as I am participating together with this meeting with Dr. Wang and Dr. Miao, how do we have a better organizing form of today's event? Today I see a lot of young people, talents, who have a very good speech here. Although you have a very good speech, it is not only about you have the talents to speak, it is because you are actually the practitioner in your industry and you have the experience to share with you. That is the reason why we are going to launch. Because today we also have some of the leaders from different institutions. That's the reason why, under a appropriate scenario, we are going to share with you the best practices in China, in all the different places in China. And we are going to share the experiences across the country, and I hope that the Action China in the second half of this year is going to be ever more exciting and enriching, because China is a very large country, and in the first half of this year, we only been to 20 different provinces, and we are hoping to accelerate the speed of the second half of this year. We are also looking forward to the finish of the COVID-19 pandemic. We hope that someday we could lead you out of China to any other different provinces and cities in the world. And this is also going to be extremely exciting to share with us. So, to put it simply, we hope that we could have a broader platform and let the young people play their roles and empower them. And I wish this event, under the joint effort of all of you, a good success. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you for President Yu's very insightful closing remarks.
Give a very great support for this program, and he joins the China tour Sichuan stop. He also have a very impressive dialogue with young professionals in the travel. And next is I would like to introduce the initiator and Secretary General of GYLD, and also the co-founder and Secretary General of CGG, Dr. Mabel Miao. Please.
Thank you, John's introduction. Just now, President Yu already had the conclusion of our forum. I just need add some points. Dear GYLD members, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, once again, I wish to express my deepest thanks for your active participation during the GYLD 2021 Annual Forum. We just had an intensive and very productive day. The brilliant insights and inspiring ideas you all shared have been incredibly impressive. Before I make some brief closing remark, I would like to express the gratitude to those who made this happen. On behalf of CCG, I would like to first thank the chief guests for their presence at this significant event, for delivering such inspiring speeches and giving motivation to young generations. We really appreciate them taking our time for us from your busy schedules. I would like to also reserve a special gratitude for the dedication and the support of many distinguished guests, leaders in government, business, academia, for coming together to provide concrete ideas and solutions to strengthen global cooperative communities for young leaders. Last but not least, I really would like to thank our great partner, Academy of Contemporary China and World Studies, led by President Yu, for your valuable support and efforts, commitment, and professionalism to help drive this forum. Without you, we couldn't happen. The GYLD Annual Forum thank and appreciate for your kind help. Ladies and gentlemen, we are all fully aware that despite unprecedented progress in global development, there still exist many challenges in multiple areas, and much falls on the shoulders of young people, because it is they who will lead the challenges for the bright future. Therefore, we held this forum to offer an intergenerational, intercultural platform for participants to share their insights and experience in areas ranging from scientific and technological innovation, public health, climate change, and sustainable development to other global governance issues. Now it is a watershed moment for the GYLD program. Just Mr. Yu mentioned we have some next steps. Of course, in the next steps, we have vision of promoting GYLD program to the world and holding more activities. We consider to build a global young leaders professional development programs, hold global young leaders working groups, and boost research and publication. To further explain, Global Young Leader Professional Development Programs aims to provide young professionals with several weeks graduate seminars on topics ranging from geopolitics, Chinese studies, global business to leadership development. And Global Young Leaders Working Groups offers mixers and small groups discussion to GYLD group, which are expected to take place in more relaxed, informed settings for young influencers to form issue-specific groups. Of course, this morning we have inspired by the TED Talks by GYLD. We should have more those GYLD TED Talks series. Ladies and gentlemen, young people have the power to change the world, and they will. Actually, we will. We can be the driving force behind the global development and peaceful existence of different cultures. Let us leave this forum with a renewed determination to believe and collaborate, to share innovative solutions, and stay together to commitments we have set. Following the GYLD 2021 Annual Forum, CCG 7th Annual China and Globalization Forum, one of CCG's flagship conference, will be held tomorrow. Since 2015, CCG has hosted this forum annually, bringing together the most prominent members of CCG advisory, leading policy scholars, and business leaders. As the co-founder and secretary general, I would like to invite you to join our forum and provide opportunity to learn from those highly regarded delegates from China's government, academia, and the business communities. You can use your GYLD forum bench to participate. Warmly welcome all of you to participate. Thank you again, and may this forum bring success and advancement for all of you. Thank you very much for your great participation.
Thank you, Dr. Mabel. And I think we can call it today. But I think, as we always said, the dialogue will keep going on. And we think in the next half of this year, this program will bring more, valuable experience and insights for all of you. And hope you can, join us to keep the dialogue going. Thank you, everyone. And at last, we would like to invite all of you to have a group photo on the stage, and then we can call it a day. Okay? Please. We can have a group photo all together. Maybe we can stand on these stairs so we can show everyone's face when take photo. Yeah. Come on, guys. Join us.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The afternoon